Welcome back, everyone, to the Drafts and Draughts podcast. I'm Dave, aka Disaster. Joe, aka Sultan, is going to be right back on screen. It is Tuesday, April 23rd, and today we are going to be reviewing the NFL mock draft by Dane Brugler. We're going to start by going through the biggest winners and biggest losers of this hypothetical. And if there's time, we're going to do a 1 QB mock draft, which is actually the league style that we play in currently. But before we begin, and before we kind of intro Joe and he gets back in here, we wanted to announce that we have our first sponsor of the podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Cournoyer CPA. Dan specializes in U.S. individual and small business taxes and bookkeeping. If you're tired of doing your own taxes and you're frustrated with the services you've been getting, sign up for a free consultation with Dan. I use Dan for my taxes, so has Joe in the past. Our experience has been phenomenal, and we can't vouch for him enough. So to have him, he's a personal friend of ours. He happens to also be in our league. To have him decide he wants to sponsor the show and potentially get a couple extra clients from people listening across the U.S., please feel free to reach out to him. We will have a link in all of our podcasts, so you can go and schedule a meeting with him as you see fit. But Dan helps individuals with tax returns, retirement questions, credits, real estate taxes, and more. And so again, you'll be in good hands. So with that, Joe, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Hey, what's going on? Yeah, and to echo what Dave just said, because I want to give a personal testimonial, Dan has done my taxes as well as my own personal business's taxes for the last 8 years. So I swear by it. But back on subject, I'm doing great. Dave, I'm so glad you asked. It's NFL draft week. I got my Patriots garb on. If we don't draft a quarterback, I'm going to have a fucking meltdown. I swear to fucking God, if I see one more thread that's talking about how we go get Marvin Harrison and figure out fucking quarterback later, I'm actually going to have a conniption. But aside from that, golf league today, shot a 42, one of my best 9-hole rounds ever, locked in with the flat stick. I hope you've been getting out and playing lately. I know you're two kids. This is a father of two, by the way, Disaster, aka Dave. Not easy. I know he struggles to get out there, but he is the god of the long ball. Dave, you get out and play it all lately?
No, I have not, and I'm depressed about it. So thank you for telling me how awesome your golf run was today. No, I am due to start doing that soon. We have there's a couple of things I'm trying to plan out. We'll see what happens. But yeah, 2 young kids haven't been out lately, but we'll get out there soon.
I'm looking forward to it. What Dave's referring to is hopefully he's going to be home. He lives in Ark. I'm
literally in the process of booking that right now. Like I was
Let's
doing that right before the show.
Yeah. So, Dave's coming home to Mass, which is where I'm from. And we're hopefully going to get a round of most of our league mates out together. I'm really hoping to get a chance to meet a bunch of the guys in the 1 quarterback league. The league you guys have been listening to us talk about is a league full of guys that, frankly, I feel like I'm really close to, but I only know 2 or 3 of them in person. So I'm really looking forward to the idea of us getting out and golfing. But yeah, that being said, I think it's time for a draft review.
Let's go.
All right,
let's do the draft review.
All right, I'll kick it off. Again, I'm winding down my collection from last week, but I am drinking today another Treehouse. If you don't know it, this is the Haze beer. This is the double IPA, 8.2% staple of Treehouse. This is the long-standing beer. I've had it plenty of times. I'm really looking forward to drinking tonight. I'm not going to be surprised by the rating. Neither are you. What do you got? Or do you have anything?
I do. I have an Ozark IPA. It's probably my easiest drinking IPA locally. It's pretty easy to find too. So if I'm looking for a local IPA, it's one of the ones I go to. It's not it's not kind of the traditional New England IPA that I really do crave, but it does the job.
Nice. Let's go with mutual crack. Cheers. Cheers. Oh my God. I'll go first because the Haze is, if you like IPAs, man, and you haven't been to Treehouse, I think there's 4 locations in Mass. Maybe there's more that I don't know about, but get your ass out here. This is the best IPA I can't even be put to words how good this is. This is a 5 out of 5, the best one I've rated yet, besides the Waffle Banger, but that's more of a niche beer. This is just so smooth and so tasty, and Dave, give breakdown for me.
Yeah, do you need to go to the bathroom? Are you okay?
Give me a minute. Put me on mute.
Yeah, this is a nice little 3.5. It's a little maltier than I like for an IPA. Again, all
35.
it's pretty good. So yeah, I've again, I enjoy it. It gets the job done, and for a local beer, craft beer, it's solid.
Nice. Okay. Well, again, I got our, what is that, our 8th draft review? We might have to actually have a draft review power rankings come out soon. I mean, I think that might be in the cards. That's 16 beers by now, if you think about it.
True.
But anyways, moving on to the OTQ, I think in the spirit of draft week, we have the NFL draft coming up. Rookie drafts are coming up. I think, especially in our league, where years past, we haven't done our rookie draft until we did it in September one year. We did it in July another year. It was only the last couple of years where we started getting more invested in Dynasty, where we started having these really early rookie drafts. Last year, we did it on Cinco de Mayo. We started at Cinco de Mayo. This year, we're going to start it sometime in May, mid to late May. You know, we'll probably wrap it up by May or June. The point being, we're taking it more seriously. And when taken more seriously, I think comes more strategy rather than just who's the biggest buzz in training camp. It's more what player fits the criteria of a good fantasy scorer, who hits certain draft capital measure, whatever you do to figure out what rookies you want. The question that I have for my one tough question this week is, how do you balance drafting for value versus drafting for need? I think, if you've listened to any podcast besides us, which I hope you guys aren't, but if you are, the question, the answer to that is always draft for value and trade for need. Blah, 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 blah. Like, it's so easy. Like, trading is just this easy mechanic that everyone does. But like, Dave, what have you noticed in our league? What kind of trends do you notice in our rookie drafts that, not even exploitable, just like if you notice a trend? And then how would our league economy influence your decision to draft for trade for value versus drafting for need? Do you really think you could trade for need later? Or do you actually contemplate that when you're looking at two different players? I'm really curious to hear this, because you actually haven't had a chance to draft in the top 6 ever. You've always drafted in the back half, so you are always facing that, I think, a tougher decision of a lot of players who are fungible, and it's which player do I take here versus the guy who's drafting 101, 102, 103 normally has that laid out for them, and you actually face the tougher decision usually of who should I draft and when should I draft them.
Yeah, so I would say our league and traditionally has been more of a need-based drafting. And I think that the interesting thing too, I'm not in a super flex league, so it's hard for me to talk to that specifically. You might be able to better, is the trading chips are kind of different. Where like you're gonna have QBs basically go off the board running out on the rookie draft, just because of the value that if they end up hitting, like you can kind of get almost any player you want if you're going to have a startable top 24 QB, especially one that accelerates to be top 12. So I think in the one QB leagues, you can kind of go both ways. But I think that the challenge is especially in the top, if you're in the top, say 8, I think that's where it becomes quite interesting, because all the players are projected to be pretty good this year, like kind of through that range. Sure, there's some at the top that you kind of think probably the top 4 are basically decided. It could be any order, so if you need a tight end, you're going to get Bowers earlier. But if you're not set there,
Yeah,
or if you are set there, you're going to grab that wide receiver. And if you need both, who knows which way you're going to go. But I think the challenge that I've gone though is like, I'd rather take the shot on someone that is projecting around that value. Maybe it's fallen a little bit, whatever the is happening in the draft, because I know I would need them. And so this happened last year at the 210 or 211, whatever it was. I grabbed Tank Bigsby. It was around where you're normally being drafted.
yeah.
It felt like a good fit. There was concerns about ETN actually being the workhorse that it ended up being. And so everything lined up that it was like, I needed some youth in the running back room to project so I could potentially sell some of the older guys into the future. And it made sense. At the same time, as I was going into that draft, I kind of had said in my head, at 210, I'm drafting a running back. It's just like, what is the order I think I'm going to be able to grab in that range? So I had Tajay, Brent grabbed him earlier, and I had Tank as kind of my top 2. And I think you even had like Charbonnet, which you got later on, or one of the others you got in the second round that I had on my list too. I was like, okay, hopefully these 3 are available and I can pick one of them. And all that was up was Tank. And so that's an example where that's how I've mostly been drafting. And it's gone okay. But I think that this year, what's different about this year compared to every other year is this year's the first time where I think I'm going to have my own baseline projections on position and then like where they fall in totality. So like total ranking of skilled players, but then also like where do they rank in the total wide receiver room, where do they rank in the total running back room, and make that assessment. So yeah, I'm nervous, I guess, to see um if I end up making different decisions. I don't have a ton of draft picks. I guess I think I have 3 of mine. I have the 210, 310, 410. So it's not as valuable of a pick to be like, oh, I have a ton of options here. But we've seen some really good people be drafted in the third and fourth rounds the last 5 years.
Definitely.
That if I have that advantage to have some insight into what I actually believe, because I watched a little bit of tape, I've monitored all the who drafted who where, blah blah blah. So we'll see. But for the most part, our league, I would say, and me in particular, have been much more onto like, what do I need? And as long as it's not like a full round reach, they'll just go with the person they need or the position they need or the best player available instead of drafting the true best player available that's in the draft. And you see that a lot with quarterbacks.
Sorry, I was composing a thought while you were speaking, and because I think you made a couple good points that I hadn't thought about before I wrote down my response to my own question. I think the state of your team matters a lot to how you end up drafting. Which I hadn't. I would like to think I'm a very level-headed, super savvy, sharp, brilliant dynasty manager who always drafts for value and never reaches on a player based on position. And I only take the best player available no matter what my team construct is. It's not true. I have been a victim of drafting for what I thought was a need or a position, almost a need based on the way our league values things too. Um, I think if you're a true rebuilder has the flexibility to actually always draft for value since they don't need to fill any holes yet. If you are going through a rebuild, it's much easier to say, I don't care if Xavier Worthy is the wide receiver 1 here. Blake Corum is the most valuable pick here, so I'm taking him even, or vice versa. If you have 2 terrible running backs, but you're going through a rebuild, it doesn't matter if the running back, you could reach a few picks on a running back. You just take the most valuable player because you're trying to fill out your team with as much value as possible. That being said, I think you made a good point. I think our league is so heavily drafts for need, or even drafts for what would be traditionally valued. It's a nice way of saying I think we tremendously overvalue running back. I think if we go back through past rookie drafts, you'll see guys, and I should have brought up ahead of time. I think it was Najee Harris was the same draft as Jamar Chase. And Najee went 101 over Jamar Chase, or even Clyde Edwards-Helaire went over Jamar. Whatever that draft was, it's like no, there wasn't a single resource on earth that had Jamar Chase going. I mean, you had Najee Harris going ahead of Jamar Chase, but our league is just so RB heavy. And I think I look back at my own team a few years ago where I did very limited research. When I had the 111, I said, I don't care what it is. I'm taking running back at 111 because it's just the most valuable position. And I think there was an example, I think it was you actually, who took Kenneth Gainwell at 111 in 1 year when I think Kenneth Gainwell was a projected mid to late second round pick, but I think he was the next best running back available. I'm not accusing you of drafting him because he was a running back, but I think you look back and you just see.
Oh no, I probably did.
Yeah, I think I think our league has been, and I think the general landscape of Dynasty has changed quite a bit to being very wide receiver heavy. And I think we are almost somewhere in between that. We're not swinging the pendulum too far on the running back side, nor are we too far on the wide receiver side. I think we're still less wide receiver focused than the rest of your standard rankings would say. But I think in years past, people just say, oh, I need another running back. I'm taking the next running back available. I don't care what the value is. And I wish I could say I was savvier than them. I'm not. I've been in situations where I said I'm taking running back. But looking at it now that I've gone through 2 drafts where I was a rebuilder, where I truly did just go what I thought was the best player available, where I went wide receiver, running back in 2022 with London, Burks, and White, and then McBride. And then I went running back, wide receiver, running back, tight end, running. Like I was always taking the next best player. It felt like because I wasn't caring whether I filled the holes in my team or not, it actually made it easier to draft just based on who's the next best player, which it sounds easy to say now because it worked out. But it's like going into this year's draft, I'm like, I'm curious whether if I think I have a hole on my team, do I really think I can go draft for value and trade for need? Because I will admittedly say, and you could probably feel the same way, you and I are probably the two most well-versed traders in the league, but yet there's probably still two or three managers in this league that you and I have made, if not one trade, we've made no trades with them. And I think it's because, I'm sorry, there are some managers in our league that are just unreasonable to trade with. And it's not no fault of their own. It's just trade clocks go off the rails, whether that's value differences or timeline differences or horizon differences or even just lack of response where you're like, I don't trust that there are certain players that I'm cut off from in our league that I know I will never get because I'm never going to settle on that value, or they're never going to make the conversation with me work to where I say, you know what? I don't think I can always just draft for value because I think there's 4 to 5 teams on any given time that I don't have any access to their players because they don't respond to trades. Like they don't even respond to negotiations in a way that's conducive to a trade relationship. So I'm just like, that whole roster is off limits. So those needs I could have filled with X, Y, and Z player are gone. So I think I'm still probably going to lead towards drafting for need versus drafting best player available. Unfortunately, I wish I could say, yeah, I'm so technically sound. I'm always going to draft for value. I don't know. I just don't think people are going to value players the same way I'm going to. For the most, I think there's a few people who are super reasonable to trade with. You're reasonable to trade with. Dan's reasonable to trade with. Aside from that, I have a really hard time making conversations like that. So I think that's as much as I want to draft for value. I admittedly don't think I'll always be able to.
Good question. Fair points.
Nice. Anyway, so now on to the main event, which is so today we wanted to go through an NFL mock draft because I think it's really easy to try to do a rookie mock based off of just somebody else's rookie mock draft rankings. Oh, somebody else has this guy as wide receiver 5. I'm going to take him. It's really different when like you got, balls to the wall. You see players in landing spots. You see the order they were drafted in, what round they went in to say, wow, this team really invested in this guy. I should change how I think about him. So I think we're going to go through an NFL mock right now by Dane Brugler. And
Which,
then,
by the way, I messed it up. I called him Dan Brugler, so Dane Brugler. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Shout out.
Yeah, we're gonna go through an NFL mock by Dane Brugler. Dave and I are gonna talk through maybe some of the biggest winners and losers in the real life NFL and fantasy landscape, like existing players, not rookies. And then if there's time at the end, maybe we'll rip through a quick 1 QB rookie mock. Maybe we'll go through alternate picks, talk about why we like this guy here or there. I mean, it's not based on our league players, our managers, or who's picking at what pick, just gut feeling, who would I take here if I had this pick.
Okay.
But anyways, let's get on to the oh shit. Okay, we have the rookie mock draft here. It looks a little small on my end, so it's probably small for those of you on YouTube too. But I'm gonna try to read through. Man, there's a lot of picks here. I have the first 3.5 rounds. I'll read through a handful. We have Caleb Williams going first overall to the Bears. We have Jaden Daniels going second overall to the Commanders. Drake May going third overall to the Patriots. JJ McCarthy going fourth overall to the Vikings. So the Cardinals must have traded down and then traded back up because we have Marvin Harrison going fifth overall to the Cardinals here. Malik Neighbors goes sixth overall to the Giants. Rome Odunze, 9th to the Bears. Brock Bowers, 10th to the Jets. Brian Thomas, 17th to the Bills. So the Bills traded up. Scanning further down, we have A.D. Mitchell going 32nd overall to the Chiefs. We have Ladd McConkey going 33rd to the Panthers. Keon Coleman, 37th to the Chargers. Xavier Worthy, 45th to the Saints. Ricky Pearsall, 46th to the Colts. I'm going to scan a little further down. We have the first running back taken is the top of the third round. We have Jonathan Brooks going 65th overall to the Panthers. The Patriots don't take a wide receiver until the beginning of the third round too. They take Malachi Corley, 68th. Blake Corum, also in the third round, 69th to the Chargers. Trey Benson, 70th overall to the Giants. So there's a big run on running backs in the third. Jalen Wright goes 87th to the Cardinals in the third. Marshawn Lloyd goes 90th to the Cardinals in the third. Did I say Cardinals earlier? Jalen Wright goes 87th to the Cowboys in the third. Marshawn Lloyd 90th to the Cardinals. And then Braylon Allen 112th in the fourth round to the Raiders, and Audric Estime in the fourth round to the Buccaneers. So if you're watching on YouTube, we have a whole list of these players drafted, what round, what position they were, what team they went to. I named a lot of the fantasy relevant ones. There's obviously, I only listed the fantasy relevant ones, but I listed the most relevant ones here. So, Dave, without even going through winners and losers, what's your gut reaction to this? I know we've heard a lot of, talk about what this draft could be. This is the first real mock I've really looked through like this. I've seen a couple before this, but this is the first one when I Googled, I found this one and was like, wow.
Yeah, there's a lot to obviously unpack into kind of the assumptions. If there's one actually thing that, excuse me. If there's one that I think is not, I don't say most surprising, but one thing I'm actually kind of think is not going to happen is I don't think the Cardinals are going to take Marvin Harrison. Like the Caleb Williams,
Really?
I've already seen the Bears stuff, but like it feels like there's a big force that they're pushing Marvin Harrison's going to go to the Cardinals. And it kind of just feels like that's something that's just not going to happen. I have no real logical reason to that, but it's just a gut feeling that's just not going to actually be the case.
Just Dave's, it's father paternalistic instincts. Isn't that a thing?
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, I think obviously there's a lot of wide receivers drafted. And I think that when we kind of almost to your question from earlier too, and I think the same thing can be said in fantasy, but also in the real NFL. You and I have debated, we're both Patriots fans, about, should the Patriots take a quarterback first, or would you rather than take a quarterback first and a wide receiver late, or a wide receiver first and a quarterback late? And my suggestion had been to actually take a wide receiver first, because the first round quarterback hit rate is 50% for over the last 10 years. That they're good, not even Super Bowl like just to be good. It's a 50% hit rate in the first round. So my caveat is there's 4 of them going in the first 4 picks. 2 of them are going to suck. And so why take that flyer when I would say, and again, I guess I would have to look at the success rate too. I don't think anyone's going to say that the top 3 wide receivers, any of them are actually going to be a dud. And so it's that kind of evaluation of the backside of like, oh, well, then how are you going to get a quarterback if you're the Patriots kind of question mark? And so that's kind of it's a duality that works in both places on the NFL GM front, but also as a fantasy manager. To what you had said, drafting for value or drafting for what you need. Well, if next year's projecting that there isn't a good quarterbacks coming out, right? As an example, if you're saying not even a superflex in a 1 QB league, and you have Aaron Rodgers and Matt Stafford, you might be like, all right, even though Caleb Williams probably isn't going in the first round in a 1 QB draft, I might just take him in the first round at the 8th overall pick, because I literally am projecting to have all these old QBs and I just need someone. Or, inverse there too, you have young QBs and same thing for wide receivers. So I think it's just like kind of looking into the future draft potential into next year's. And again, most fantasy managers, even in Dynasty, don't do that. Like I don't do that at all. But to me, what's most exciting is like there has to be so many duds in here. And if you look at all like the teams that are actually drafting wide receiver, it's going to be the challenge of trying to figure out who's actually going to become a 1, who's going to become the 2, and of the 2, who's going to be the Gabe Davises of the world, or the trying to think of bad
Devonta Smith. Oh, bad.
No, but like but then to be
Gabe Davis is a bad number 2.
Gabe Davis is a marginally to bad average at best number 2.
You already named one of those.
Right. I already named the average. I'm trying to say
no, you named the bad one.
Yes,
shut the fuck up.
Compared to Devontae, Jalen Waddle,
right,
and that like, and so that's going to be the interesting and fun thing to do. Like I think Rome Odunze to the Bears is terrible. I actually don't think that pick's going to happen either, because you just signed 2 wide receivers. And again, you put them there. It's like there's two things. One is like, I don't know if you heard this
That's
stat.
JSN to the Seahawks all over again.
It's that, but it's worse. Well, it's actually pretty. Probably, I wonder what the same stat is. I wonder how many 4,000. I actually wonder how many 4,000 passing yard QBs the Seahawks have ever had, because the Bears is one, and they got the 4,000.
No, they've never even. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the challenge there is like, what the hell do I want Romadunza there for? Like, that just makes no sense.
Because Keenan's got like half a year left in the tank.
Sure. But like, I don't know. So there's just a lot of interesting pieces there too. But I think the other really surprising thing is then the first RB off the board is actually in the third round. I think that's going to be sooner. Probably sometime.
That's exactly my two gut instincts when I read this is one, this mock is all chalk. Like it is the nuts landing spot for every fucking player. Like there is not a single landing spot on here where you go, oh, that sucks, man. Every single guy lands in a situation where they can thrive. And I'm sorry, Dane Brugler, this draft, there's no way this draft happens. Like I agree with you. Maybe like not saying I dispute the points you disputed, but some wide receiver is going to end up in Cincinnati. Some receiver we all like, Ricky Pearsall, is going to end up in Cincinnati behind Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Or some running back, Jalen Wright, is going to end up on the Baltimore Ravens at the end of the second behind Derrick Henry and splitting time. And it's like, we're going to go from a guy that we all maybe kind of liked pre-draft to being like, well, fuck this guy. Because what happened last year? JSN went to the Seahawks and nobody had that on their bingo card. Fucking Zach Charbonnet went to the Seahawks behind Kenneth Walker. He was supposed to be the RB3 of the class. Like he was supposed to be an early second round pick, like similar cut of the same cloth as a guy like Ken Walker. And he went to the same team as Ken Walker. And it's just so funny that like, yeah, this draft gives every single skill position player a nuts landing spot. Like, oh, the Steelers just traded away Deontay Johnson. Wow, they draft Roman Wilson. How fucking convenient. Like a slot receiver from the Big Ten. It's like, that's not going to happen. There's going to be like, the Chiefs are going to draft like Roman Wilson, who's another slot receiver, and they're going to have 5 slot guys between Rice, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, and fucking Roman. I just think that this draft is, I wish I didn't want to dig too hard.
Sky Moore still exists. Is he still a human being?
He's still there. He's still alive. But yeah, so those are my gut instincts. And I agree. I know this running back class is revered as being pretty subpar. I think from what I've heard, you stack up the RB1 in this class and it stacks up as like the RB4 or 5 of the last two classes. Like they stack up behind Zach Charbonnet. They stack up behind Devon A-Chain, who was his third round pick. But I think, like you said, teams draft for need just like in real life. There are going to be teams that don't have a good running back that are going to see Trey Benson there in the second round and go, oh, you got to take him now because I don't want to wait till the third and see if he's still there. So that's my gut reaction. Tons of receivers. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 wide receivers get taken in the first 2 rounds. 0 running backs. So let's move on. Let's talk about what are some of the downstream effects of this draft as you look? Like, who are some of the winners, the clear, obvious winners among current existing NFL players? Obviously, we can look at the list of rookies and say, yeah, Caleb wins because he's getting Keenan Allen and DJ Moore as his 2 leading pass catchers.
And Rome Odunze.
Right, and Rome Odunze. But like, who are some NFL winners you see when or give me one. What's the first winner you think of?
Oh man, like, do you want? We can just go through a few from the top. Like, I'm hesitant to say I like the Commanders because they just keep drafting QBs and keep whiffing. So I guess I'll say the Commanders and Terry McLaurin.
Terry McLaurin's on my list. So yeah. I think as much as you've loved circle jerk and Terry McLaurin by yourself, I think it's warranted this time. I think this is gonna be the best quarterback he's ever played with. So
yeah, and that's my expectation too. I think that the question there lives of it's not mocked that way in this thing, but do the Commanders end up taking another wide receiver? And then how does that shake out in the room? Do they trade either Dotson or McLaurin? Like, I don't know what it'll be interesting to see how it plays out to actually go into camp. But yeah, if it's just Jaden Daniels, I would hope that McLaurin is that clear number 1 that he is passing to a lot. But again, Dotson, Dotson's been lingering as like this so good piece that just hasn't. I know. Listen, as the McLaurin dick sucker, I definitely think Dotson sucks too. But I think if you evaluate that for what it is, right? If he gets really good chemistry with Jahan Dotson, a good example would be Baker Mayfield. he came in. Mike Evans has always been this perennial 1,000-yard receiver. Everyone thought Godwin was still going to be elite, and he had an awful season. And it truly looked like it was a chemistry issue where he was just so in sync with his white brother and Mike Evans, and was not into feeding Chris Godwin his black brother.
White brother.
So that's a question I have with the Commanders, and just for any of these QBs going anywhere, like especially Caleb Williams, who's going to be his alpha one? Is it Moore? Do they have a new rookie that's same age and not these old farts that are just like, a decade older that he's throwing to? Or is it this rookie that he likes? Is it actually going to be Keenan Allen? Is it going to be DJ Moore? So for me, the first table stick I do like is hopefully Jaden Daniels is good and Terry McLaurin is good in this year. Actually, I'll ask you a question back. Not quite biggest loser, and maybe it's another fun thing to do. In the first 5 QBs taken, who's CJ Stroud?
Between Caleb, Daniels, May, McCarthy, and Penix.
Yeah.
I think the easy answer is Caleb.
Really?
And I think he's
after
just
all all the Bear stats, all the challenging weather he's going to have to face in Chicago, all the pressure he's going to have in Chicago. He has 2 old guys. One of them's going to get hurt.
I'm never going to pretend I'm a film analyst. I'm not going to pretend that I can grade. I don't have a QB model. I have a wide receiver model. No, but like NFL, like you said in the pre-show, NFL, or not pre-show, in the intro, NFL teams get QB wrong every year to up to 50% of the time. Like, I'm not going to pretend I know. I just think the combination of his lore, his pedigree, his skill set, he had like 47 touchdowns and 5 picks last year, and it was considered a down year. Like, It's not like he had and who is he throwing to? If you can name one receiver on USC, I'll fucking blow you through the screen right now.
I couldn't. I didn't even know USC, so let's start with that.
Yeah. So he was playing with Jaden Daniels had 2 of the top wide receivers in the nation this past year. Drake May was throwing to Josh Downs last year and Tez Walker this year, both 3rd-round picks. JJ McCarthy had Roman Wilson this past year. Granted, nothing. Caleb Williams had Jordan Addison last year, but he had Brendan Rice this year was his top receiver. Like, he had nothing, and their team he's so good. He's like everything I've seen, heard. I've watched a QB school episode. He's so incredible. It's hard not to think that he's not going to succeed in that team that didn't earn the first overall pick, mind you. They were a middling team. They had pretty decent offense behind a QB that was, Justin Fields was terrible. And their defense was solid. I think he's in a great situation. He's got at least 2 stud receiving options, maybe a third if they draft Brock Bowers. He's the obvious candidate to go out there and put up 30 touchdowns, 8 to 10 interceptions, whatever, throw for 3,000 yards, probably rush for another 500, 300. If I was going to pick a dark horse, I think Drake May has like the intangibles. The problem's going to be, if he goes to the Patriots, can they surround him with real talent? When I look at this draft board, they didn't go draft somebody with their 2nd-round pick in this draft. They didn't get their next wide receiver till Malachi Corley in the 3rd. So they're stuck with Corley, Kendrick Bourne coming off an ACL, and Pop Douglas, who we all know is a superstar in the making. Let's not try to hide it. But I think he has what it takes. The problem will be, I would hope that the Patriots trade that 2nd-round pick for one of the Ayuks, the T. Higginses, the AJ Brown, whatever receiver is available during the draft this year. I hope they make a concerted effort to try to go get him. I don't want them to trade away first to do that, but you're not going to succeed with Drake May throwing to the guy coming off an ACL surgery.
My CJ Stroud, and this is projecting JJ McCarthy to whoever actually goes to the Vikings. And I just think it's an obvious. I think if you actually just go with the teams that are on here, it's either whoever goes to the Vikings. I think the sneaky back end one is the Raiders quarterback, because you have 2 good receivers. You have Michael Mayer coming up. Like, there's potential there that if you have that right pieces to go over there and actually come in, new coach, kind of invigorated. I could see that at it's almost Texans, where everyone's kind of running off the Texans forever. And then all of a sudden CJ Stroud came in, and even then they still wrote him off, but he got that chemistry going, and he was a competent QB coming in. I think that's the other kind of outside one that I think is interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just can't see the way again, this is all speculation, but JJ McCarthy, I think he had something ridiculous like 2 100-yard passing games in his career or something. I mean, I could be making this up. I think I heard it on like 98.5 the Sports Hub, and I know those guys don't fact check any fucking callers. So, but it was something ridiculous. Like he was never asked to air the ball out. Doesn't mean he can't do it, but like, how do you expect him to come into the league that's dominated by passers and then become a leading passer? And I know he's got JJ and he's got Addison, he's got Hawkinson, but I just don't trust it. But
Well,
so
but I think that another big thing that's interesting too is like, do you not trust that? Do you not trust this? Like, I think it's not just trusting the QB; it's also the scheme. Like, look at how good. Oh my God, his name's gonna escape me now. But the Vikings head coach,
Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, O'Connell did with just like Josh Dobbs, who came in and won 2 or 3 games from another team.
Oh my God, that was electric. He was electric.
But is that also just Josh Dobbs, or is that Kevin O'Connell? Is that the scheme?
You're right. That's a good point.
Is that the playbook they put in front of the QB with the talent around him on the skill positions? I think all of that. I think to write off that Vikings QB, I would say if there's one person, and maybe this is too TMI for our league, but if I saw my 410 and the Vikings QB is there, I'm taking him. It's just it's too obvious not to take him.
I think our league has come around on quarterbacks. I think I was also included in this mindset of I would never spend a first on a QB. I think I've talked to other managers who said the same. And then as we've played through this league enough and you've seen guys like Lamar and Josh Allen dominate the league and Jalen Hurts, like where you get that 20 to 25 point per game quarterback to anchor your squad in a start 8 or start 10, whatever. That's so valuable. You can't replace that with the Kirk Cousinses of the world, the Matt Staffords of the world. I'm sorry, not even the Tuas of the world. Like those guys are good, but they're putting you up. They're giving you 16 points a game unless they have an explosive game. You have to have a juggernaut of a squad to support that at your quarterback position. Whereas like guys like Caleb, May, Daniels, and like you even said, if JJ McCarthy is even halfway decent with that offense and that QB, he could be an easy 16 points per game minimum with a 20 point to 25 point ceiling every week, just off virtue of that, how good that offense could be.
Well, I will say, I just pulled up like all the QBs drafted number 1 overall only. There's not many duds, and so like the last dud before Bryce Young is Jameis
Carson Wentz. Oh, I think Carson Wentz was pretty good. He was almost MVP. So yeah, Jameis Winston.
Carson Wentz wasn't 1 overall.
Oh. Well, Jameis Winston had a couple of really good years where he threw for like 5,000 yards.
Yeah, he had some decent years, but like before that, you go Bryce Young. So okay, we'll see what happens there. You have Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, which again had some rough starts, but like he's a competent quarterback. Right. He's not elite, but he's competent. Jared Goff, then it was Jameis Winston, Andrew Luck, Cam Newton, Sam Bradford, Matt Stafford. So like, and then you have the other kind of misses like Alex Smith and
even Alex Smith was again, it's not
serviceable. You're right.
A serviceable quarterback.
I'm saying, like that hit rate at number 1 is actually like 85%. Like it's
and the stability, like you mentioned earlier, we're not going to go through a super flex ranking, but that makes Caleb all that much more valuable in super flex because you're getting 3 years of runway with him, which like we've just said, he's going to give you what at minimum 16 points per game. That's better than wide receiver. That's wide receiver 1 production. So you get that and throw that in your super flex slot. That's in such an advantage of that. Yep. You're going to get 3 years of Caleb in your super flex slot. That's unbelievably a huge advantage over a guy like even Trey Lance, who went 3rd overall and got 3 starts. You get the 1st overall selection, you're going to get starts. But so that's good. So we've covered 2. Well, you covered Terry. I sort of mentioned Demario Douglas was one of my big winners. I think if this is what we're happening, if this is the way the draft falls, where the Patriots go Drake May, and then don't take a second round wide receiver, their number 1 receiver taken is Malachi Corley. Demario Douglas is wheels up on a per route basis. He was a top 6 rookie last year. It was like Puka Nacua, Rashee Rice, and then I'm pretty sure it was him and Jaden Reed were like lockstep in all of your per route data. He was such a fucking winner in the short intermediate area. He's a zone beater. He's set up for success. There's no one challenging his role if this is what the Patriots do. He is. If this is the way the draft would unfold, and I know it's easy to say because he's on my team, but I think this particular, I think he's at risk of anybody to get smushed in the draft. The Patriots should trade for a wide receiver, draft another one, and Demario Douglas should be relegated to wide receiver 4. But in the very off chance this is the way the draft unfolds, he's a winner. But the one that I wanted to touch on was Kyler Murray. My God. If you haven't bought low on Kyler Murray before now, it's too late. Like when he went down with the ACL injury, and then Hollywood Brown went down with the foot injury, and then DeAndre Hopkins got traded, that was the time when Kyler was going as a 5th, 6th round startup player versus a first round or whatever he was. That was the time to buy him, because now you're getting Kyler coming back a full year off ACL surgery. You're having Trey McBride grow into his own as a tight end, who's an awesome intermediate route runner, like winner in the middle of the field. You have Marvin Harrison coming in, playing as the true natural X on the outside. He's the best, most polished receiving prospect in this class. They're also adding another running back who has pass catching chops in the 3rd round, in Marshawn Lloyd. Like, you're giving Kyler all of the keys to success. You now have Marvin on the outside. You have Michael Wilson on the inside, along with, I think, Rondale Moore is still there, or maybe not. He got traded to the Falcons, I think. Greg Dortch. I don't even fucking know who else they have, but him, Trey McBride, it just wheels up for Kyler. You have to anticipate, especially in like a fairly open NFC West. Like, I don't think there's any juggernaut. The Seahawks are good. The 49ers are good. The Rams are good. I mean, the 49ers are good because of their offense is just unbelievable. I guess their defense is good too. I shouldn't say that, but it's an open conference. I think you could see I think it's a wheels up for Kyler next year if this is the way the draft falls. Do you have any other winners on your end as you're looking through this, or any comments on the Kyler? I know you don't think Marv's going there, but assuming this is the way the draft actually happened.
Yeah, I mean, no, if Marv goes, I think it's interesting. I think it should be wheels up for Kyler. I think, unfortunately for Kyler, because of the injuries and because he showed such promise out the gate, this is kind of his year. If it doesn't happen, he's probably gone.
I mean, he's on a big contract.
Maybe not out of the league, but he's off the team. But that's the thing. If they get Marvin Harrison, you have Trey McBride. You just came back. You've already rehabbed basically 8 months beyond the rehab of like actually being able to play, practice, everything, and you don't perform this year, like, you're probably gone.
That's a good point. I never thought about that.
So you're right. There was a time to buy low. It's already happened. At the same time, if there's time to sell high, it's right after Marvin Harrison gets drafted, because depending on where people are mocking him or projecting him, if your league starts valuing Kyler at QB5, sell the shit out of him, because if it goes poorly, it's going to go poorly bad, and then he's gone, and who knows if he's starting again soon. The rest of this, yeah, it's interesting. Like, there's just so many questions as far as like winners. Like, again, who's really going to be an alpha versus not? All these teams obviously already have wide receivers, even if they're shitty wide receivers. And so the question is, like, is Keon Coleman wide receiver 1? I don't know. Like, is Loud McConkey going to be wide receiver 1? I don't know. He might be the number 1 option coming out of the slot wherever he's playing out of, but like, I don't know. There's a lot of interesting pieces here too. And like Ricky Pearsall, like, he could be the same thing as a JSN last year if it ends up being Josh Downs and Pittman, and then Pearsall's just kind of like there.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. There's some interesting pieces kind of around there as far as like a winner. I think you'd be more inclined to point out some of the potential losers that kind of come from this draft.
Losers easier. Before we get to that though, I did have one more winner, which you kind of just touched on, which the other one I had was Bryce Young. I think mostly because he can't go any lower. He just had a historically low rookie season. And then not only did they trade for Deontay Johnson, they spend their first pick in this draft on a receiver. They're clearly saying, we know we didn't surround you with talent. We got Lad McConkey, who, whether you like it or not, in this draft, he goes as wide receiver 6. So we got the 6th best receiver in our eyes to put on your team. We also spent our next pick on running back. We are doing whatever we can to surround you with some talent. I know Jonathan Brooks coming off an ACL surgery. I don't know how I feel about that. I had never even heard of him until middle of last year, and then he got hurt, and I was like, I guess this guy is good. But I don't know. I'm excited for him. It'd be cool if he's good. That's great. But them getting Brooks and Lad McConkey is showing an investment in, and they get Ben Sinnott. in the 4th, which I didn't even realize, a tight end who I don't even know where he's from. I just heard the name. He might be like Texas A&M or something. But they're showing the way this draft unfolded shows me that the Panthers are trying to give Bryce Young a chance. And so if this is the way the draft unfolded, it would be go buy Bryce Young while he's still depressed. If you're in a super flex and you could get him for a first, I would do it. In a 1 QB, a little different. I think maybe I would give a 3rd round pick. Like if I needed a quarterback and I had, if my team right now, if I only had Lamar and no Jared Goff, I think I would send my 3rd for Bryce Young as a speculative, throw him on my taxi for a year. Good opportunity for him to appreciate. He's 6 years younger than Lamar, but I think he's a winner of this draft.
He only scored a touchdown in 2 of his first 9 games.
It's a fucking made up stat. Shut the fuck up.
No, it's not. It's a real ass stat.
You made that up. Guys, chat. Dave made that up. Don't listen to Dave.
He only scored a touchdown in 1 of his first 7 games.
Get the fuck out.
That makes it better or worse. He also, his team only scored double-digit points in 1 of his first 5 games, including 2 of those being 0 points scored as a team.
Okay, so listen to Sultan. Buy low on Bryce Young.
That is.
Are you including pick sixes?
What do you mean? I'm including everything. That is
because he would have thrown a touchdown a couple of times. I think he threw 2 pick sixes to the Colts in 1 game.
I don't know. Either way, it was bad. It was. He only had 11 TDs the whole season. He had 11 TDs and 10 interceptions.
Okay, well, this is why I think it's a buy low. I think if you could buy him for
you know what? You know what that means? He's just like to share. He's all about equality. He gives 1 TD. All right, he gives 1 interception.
I mean, he's an equal opportunity passer. I see what you're saying. Okay, let's get to the easier part of this exercise. I think, like, what are the immediate losers when you look at this draft? Like, which current players do you think lose out big time, or even just small? It doesn't need to be a big time loss. Just be like a change in perception, change in value that they take a little bit of a hit. I think you already touched on one with the Rome Odunze going to the Bears. Whether you're like it or not, I think DJ Moore and Keenan Allen take a slight hit just off of the same way, like you said, with DK and Lockett did last year with JSN. Is like you can't just dismiss Rome Odunze as a rookie and say, oh, he's not going to really do anything.
Yeah, I agree. Hold on.
He's searching.
I'm searching.
He's cooking.
Hold on.
Well, that's how I feel. I feel like you have to discount DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore is right now going as a top 12 wide receiver on Underdog. I think he deserves to. He's a great wide receiver. He had a top 10 finish last year. First year with a real quarterback.
I don't think he's a great wide receiver. Have you watched him play? He's not. I don't think he's a great wide receiver at all.
I think he's a dog. I think he's great after the catch, which is like a tough. It's not as good as a guy who just gets open all the time. Like Devontae is a technician. I think like Jamar Chase is a technician. He's always open. Like, but CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson are technicians. But DJ Moore is he's like a DJ. He's like a Deebo Samuel with a bit more polished route tree.
Okay. Oh, DJ Moore is a run 8 yards, turn around, catch the ball, try to break a tackle, and run 20 more yards. That's all I did all year.
Yeah, and it's Deebo Samuel.
It's terrible. All right, so if say this draft is real.
Yeah, this is a real draft.
Okay, great.
Why wouldn't it be? This is the real draft.
One of the biggest losers, the Titans.
What makes you say that?
They didn't do anything. Who the hell is Will Levis throwing the ball to? Treylon Burks?
What do you mean? It's DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley are there.
I mean,
I think you're really dismissing. I had this conversation with Bohm via text where you talk up Terry McLaurin as this perennial wide receiver too, and then you talk about Ridley like he's a bench piece when Ridley was like the wide receiver 18 last year. Like it's not like he was a nobody.
That's fair. I guess I guess so, but it's like
he was wide receiver 5 2 years ago. Like he's not a nobody. And DeAndre Hopkins was also a perennial god.
Wide receiver 5 3 years ago. 2 years ago. 4 years ago. 3 years ago, he only played 5 games. 2 years ago, he played no games. Then he played a full season last season. So that's
4
why
seasons?
he's had 1 season top 12. He's had only 2 seasons top 24 out of 6.
Out of how many seasons did he play though?
Doesn't matter. He's old as shit.
He is old as fuck. Him and McLaurin are the same age.
So yeah, I think but anyways, I guess again,
they have Pollard and Ty J. Spears. Like they don't really have much they had to do there.
But hold on. So that's partially where, like, if the Bears do draft a wide receiver, it does kind of make sense. Same question marks, like, where's the Browns? Like, who are they throwing
True.
to? Or like, what's their plan? Is it Jerome
Yeah.
Ford season? Is Nick Chubb going to come back and start running wide receiver routes? Like, I don't know what they're going to do there, period. So yeah, I think it's more just like looking at the team side and just, who is or isn't doing anything. I'd say that actually the question mark here, an interesting one, is going to be what happens to the Packers. There's nothing here projected for them on a wide receiver front. They have 3 young wide receivers. I wonder what's going to happen there too, because like I'd love more clarity, but it'd be really interesting if they add a 4th.
Oh my God, that would just be pandemonium.
Bringing in more people, because then like who the hell do you actually start? Who matters? I don't know. But yeah, I think the rest, like it's. I'm trying to think if there's any other teams just quickly. If I'm like, oh, who is their wide receiver 1? Do they matter? Kind of situation.
Well, while you scan that, I can go through my biggest loser right away. Just the first thing I thought of was Justin Herbert from a fantasy lens. He loses Mike Williams, he loses Keenan Allen, and according to this, they trade down out of the 5th overall pick. So they must have picked up a couple firsts, and they don't spend a first on a wide receiver weapon. The first pick they take is Keon Coleman, who I think is going to be good. But now you're sending Justin Herbert into a situation next year where his two number 1 and number 2 targets are Keon Coleman and Quentin Johnston. Nothing I would be too excited about. And then don't
forget Josh Palmer.
Who's that? And then on top of that, they go and they spend a 3rd round pick on Blake Corum after signing Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. So those are 2 more losers, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. On top of that, it's more of a hampering to Justin Herbert because it tells me that the Chargers are going to be leading a run-first offense. So from a fantasy perspective, Justin Herbert is I'm sure he can be good, but I'm talking like Trevor Lawrence last year good, which is like what, QB 13 or 14? Like not rookie year Herbert who threw for 40 touchdowns. I'm talking like he could be basically a glorified game manager with a big fucking arm. Like he's doing nothing with this. He's hoisting it up to Keon Coleman and Quentin Johnston and hope that their brick hands don't fucking fail them. Like I think he's the biggest loser looking at this. I was praying if I'm a Herbert owner, they draft Malik Neighbors at 5 or they'd stick and draft Marvin Harrison at 5. Could you imagine if you're a Chargers fan and you see them at 5 on the clock and Marvin Harrison hasn't been taken yet and they trade that fucking pick away? How livid you would be? Because that's what happens in this situation. They traded it to the Cardinals. Like, how infuriated would you be to be like, actually, instead of throwing to Marvin Harrison, we're going to throw to fucking Keon Coleman. Like, oh, I would be so pissed.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think the other one I just looked at here too is Denver.
Oh my God!
They did nothing in this draft.
They have Bo Nix. No, they got Spencer Rattler. That's the QB they got.
And they traded for Zach Wilson.
Oh, then they're fine. What am I saying?
But who are they throwing to? Like Cortland, I think Cortland Sutton showed some stuff last year, and it's like he's, I guess, kind of interesting. But like they really have no wide receiver core. The running back room is just a weird, convoluted mess. So it's weird that it feels to me like what you said, talking about this draft, like it's just kind of peaceful, put in places that just make the most sense, but not actually considering there's other teams that need shit too, that they might try to do something here. And it's like, yeah, these teams are the more popular, probably better performing teams.
Oh yes, this is definitely a popularity draft. This was a clickbait draft. Now that it's the first one that showed up on Google, so it did its job.
There you go.
Do you have any other? I have the other losers I have are, I think, two losers that I think are to a lesser extent. And that's Chuba Hubbard and Rachaad White. I think Chuba Hubbard is the running back in Carolina and Rachaad White, the running back in Tampa Bay. Neither of them get destroyed by any means. I think they both still, based on the way this draft unfolded, still have very large roles. I think Rashad still maintains the most valuable role as the pass catcher because Audric Estime is a ground and pounder. But part of what made Rachaad White so valuable last year was he got 25 opportunities a game. And if
they catching the ball was really what made him valuable.
Right. On top of the fact that he still got 15 to 25 carries a game on top of his pass catching chops, which I don't think that's going anywhere. I think he's a top 5 pass catching running back in the league, and that's not changing anytime soon. But Audric Estime comes in. He is made for give me the rock and let me pound. You need 2 yards, and Audric Estime is going to get you 3. If you need 6 yards, Audric Estime is going to get you 3. He is just made for the 3-yard carry. He's a big, lumbering, bruising dumbass. He's Lendale White reincarnated. If you remember that name, props to you. He's not a fleet of foot running back. He's a tub of goo, but he complements Rachaad White really well because I think Rachaad clearly was not a ground and pounder. He was less than 4 yards per carry back. I think that's a lot to do with their offensive line, but you have to say he's going to lose a little bit of his carry share. He might go down. He might go from a 90% back to a 75% back. And that's enough to knock him out of the 2nd round conversation in redraft or 3rd round conversation to be like a 4th or 5th. And then the other one is Chuba Hubbard, who right now, as it stands today, is the lead back on Carolina. He was the most efficient back on Carolina for the last couple of years. He was an incredible college prospect. I don't know why I wasn't really as big into the scouting lens back then, but he was great from what I've seen when I looked at his college stats. And I'm like, why is he not the lead back? And if they draft Jonathan Brooks, he definitely takes a little bit of a hit. I still think with his ACL injury, Chuba is still the lead, but he takes somewhat of a hit because there's always gonna be speculation that when is Brooks healthy? When's Brooks coming back? Is it week 6? Is it week 8? Is it the following season? Doesn't matter. Chuba's never going to get to that 1st round value, no matter how well he plays this year, by the sheer fact that the Panthers spent a 3rd round pick on a running back. So those are my other 2 smaller losers. I had Vikings pass catchers on my list, but we already went through them. So I don't want to go through that again. I think JJ McCarthy stinks, in case you didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say he does or doesn't stink. That's why I kind of said to me, it's more the Vikings QB. Whether it's JJ McCarthy, if it's Drake May, like I don't really give a shit who it is. I think whoever it is, though, I like Kevin O'Connell as a coach. And so for me, I'm trusting him. And then there's just too many talented people around him that are not gonna like at least make him look better than probably he is. Whoever that person may be. So we'll see.
Oh, the other running back I meant to mention was Zamir White, who I think Braylon Allen is a stud. He gets killed by Braylon Allen's been a stud in college football for the last 2 years. He set rookie. He's 17 years old in the Big Ten for Wisconsin. And we know who Wisconsin produces: Melvin Gordon, Jonathan Taylor, fucking other guys who are good at running footballs. I don't know, but Braylon Allen is an absolute monster, and him going to the Las Vegas just kills Zamir White RB1 season vibes. So that's the other one that's cut from the same cloth as Rachaad White and Jonathan Chuba Hubbard. But I think that's actually the nail in the coffin one. I think Braylon Allen is phenomenal. The fact that he's still there in the 4th round is, I mean, what do I know? But I think I've heard that name for 3 fucking years, and I don't even follow college football. So I imagine he's pretty good. But yeah, so we're coming up on an hour, Dave. I did pull up a mock draft if you want to try to go through and do a off the cuff rookie mock. We can try our best. All right, let's see if I can get this in the quay. Let's go back to the regular view, get rid of this background. Give me a second, guys. Share screen. Perfect. All right, so for those of you recapping, we're doing a 1 quarterback Dynasty Rookie Mock. We're going to try to get through 12 picks. If we're cruising, maybe we'll go a little further. Shoot, I need to pull up the actual draft picks again. Dave, you might need to pull it up on your side so we can actually keep track of who went where again. Because we're gonna base our rookie mock off of the NFL mock by Dane Brugler. So,
Interesting. Okay.
That's how we're going to, that makes the most sense after we just talked about these landing spots. It only makes sense for us to say, if this was real, how would we mock our rookie picks? And let's not do it based on who's picking where. Let's not say, oh, well, if I'm Gilday at the 104, here's who I would take. I got you. So if you can see the screen, I think because I have the 101, it probably makes sense for me to actually take the 101 IRL here. I'm going to make the obvious pick. Let's start the draft. Oh, shit. Oh, what the fuck? I just did it all for me. All right, so I do it manually. I'm going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. I think this is the no-brainer chalk pick, regardless of landing spot. I think there's no situation to me that can supplant Marvin Harrison from this 101 because of the, as we've talked about earlier, the value, the best player available. I think no matter what happens in the draft, there's no one who has more insulation than Marvin Harrison. We've heard about him for 3 years. We heard about him as a rookie when he was, or a freshman at Ohio State when he was behind Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith and Jigba and whatever. And we heard about him last year when he fucking popped off in the stead of JSN, who was hurt all last year, with CJ Stroud at QB. And then he did it again this year. I don't care if he goes to the Patriots. I don't care if he goes to the Chargers. I don't care if he goes to the Giants or the Cardinals in this situation. But I think going to the Cardinals solidifies him to me as the clear and far and away number one pick because you have a bona fide QB1. QB situation is resolved. There's no other target competition on that team in the wide receiver room. Sorry, Michael Wilson fans. He's a good guy. I'm sure he's a nice person, but he's just this ideal landing spot. Of course.
So Marvin Harrison goes to the Bears and Malik Neighbors goes to the Cardinals. Or actually, Marvin Harrison goes to the Giants and Malik Neighbors goes to the Cardinals, and you're still taking Harrison.
Yeah, I think the hard part here is this is where I try to think that I'm sharp enough to say I think Marvin Harrison retains his value better than Neighbors does in the event they both fail. Like if Marvin Harrison has a down year, he's still going to be regarded. Like look at Drake London right now. He's done fucking nothing and he's wide receiver 10 in most like in startup drafts right now. And you look at JSN who's done nothing and he's wide receiver 20 in most startup drafts because there's still people holding on to the hope of the name of JSN or the hope of the name of Drake London. Can you imagine the weight the name of Marvin Harrison carries? So
I think you're just not giving enough credit to Malik Neighbors' name, but I can understand.
I think it's also a little bit like Malik Neighbors has only done it once. Like I'm not trying. He did it a lot of it this year. I think Marvin Harrison's done it for 2 full seasons as a top 6 receiver in college football. Period. Top 3 if you really. He's just been so good for 2 years under multiple quarterback systems. Like not to say Neighbors did it because of Daniels or Daniels did it because of Neighbors, but like Neighbors came out of nowhere. Like it was last year was Kayshon Boutte was leading that LSU Tigers team. And then all of a sudden this year it's Neighbors and Brian Thomas just out of thin air just materialize as these top 4 receivers. Like not to discount them. I just think.
Well, you can put Malik Neighbors as the 2. I'm going to take him.
All right. So talk to me a little bit more. Are you taking him because of his landing spot to the Giants or because of other players' landing spots? Or you really like Neighbors as a prospect?
No, I think to me, a lot of people have the top 3 like in this bucket. My bucket is Harrison and Neighbors together. And no, I don't like the Giants landing spot. I hope he doesn't land up with the Giants.
Me neither.
But if he does, he does. But to the same vein of like, if there's no one else I'd rather have than him on the board, and to the point of like, I think his talent, but also the name will carry a year plus in case he has an off first year.
I agree. So I think Neighbors had such a good draft eligible year season. It's on par with some of the greatest seasons we've ever seen. It's really hard to imagine him not succeeding as a prospect, no matter where he lands, especially if it's even the Giants, like he becomes the de facto number 1 everything. He's probably the best running back on that team now too. So I think he's a no-brainer choice at number 2. Let me go to, I just had it open, the draft order. So we had right here for me, it's between Rome Odunze and Brock Bowers. And for the record, we are going to tight end premium next year. So we're going to go to full PPR for receivers. Tight end premium is 1.5 points per reception the following year. But he's going to the Jets. And I'm sorry, I just think the Jets are a wasteland for fantasy prospects. So I think talent talent wins out here. I'm taking Roma Dunze. I think, like you said, it's a little sketchy year one, but I think you have to be ready for that. The weirdest thing that's going to happen is, say this situation actually unfolds and Roma Dunze puts up a season like JSN just had, which is not a bad season, but good call, putting it on the screen. Not a bad season, but just not the season we all hope for, which is like, oh, we hope he beats out Keenan Allen and then rivals DJ Moore. But what if he just has a pretty good wide receiver 3 season? People are going to be like, is Roma Dunze cooked? Is he overrated? And it's like, no, he just got drafted to a tough situation, like with a really tough wide receiver room, a good tight end, and Cole Kmet. Like, how can you DeAndre Swift's a pass catching
I think
back?
though, considering that landing spot though, if it is there versus the Jets, I'd much rather have Brock Bowers on the Jets than I would Roma Dunze on the Bears, at least for year one. And then if you already know you're going to tight end premium, then Brock Bowers should be higher ranked than Roma Dunze in that type of setting.
Yeah.
No tight end premium, I understand it. With tight end premium though coming and lingering 1 year out, I think Brock Bowers is that. This is an interesting thing that could happen in our league. Is that does he go 3 instead of Roma Dunze?
Right. I think it's a legitimate conversation, especially based on landing spot. Like,
Yeah.
I think Brock Bowers is, as we've already said, the greatest tight end prospect we've ever witnessed, according to a number of people. I don't actually scout tight ends. I don't fucking know anything. But from everything I've heard, is just like he's unbelievable. He led the Georgia.
All right,
let's put him. Is
Brock
you're
in.
taking? I would say, is that who you're taking before I start talking about him?
Yeah.
It's just he led the Georgia passing offense 3 years in a row. Like,
who you got?
No, Zim, do you want to talk about a little bit about why you chose Brock Bowers' just situation?
No, it's obvious. It's okay. Like, listen, I'm gonna assume that our followers are slightly educated. We already hit on Brock Bowers. You said it was one of the top tight ends coming out ever, projecting wise.
Okay.
Are these going to tight end premium, and it's also a factor, and landing spot. I think if there's not tight end premium, these are landing spots. I don't know what comes post Aaron Rodgers, but like I'm excited for Brock Bowers for 2 seasons, and then who knows?
Yeah. All right. So I'm at the 105. I think according to Sleeper ADP, Caleb Williams is the next pick that has been going. And as much as I love Caleb, I think it might be a little too early. I think this is where the conversation begins around, do I go with that premier unbeatable QB prospect, or do I go with what I would say is what seems like a riskier profile in Brian Thomas, who, like Neighbors, came out of nowhere. He didn't do anything last year. He was a nobody, and now he's all of a sudden a top 4 receiver prospect. I think, admittedly, if I'm going here, I'm assuming I probably need way more help at wide receiver than I do at quarterback. I'm not even considering running back or other tight ends at this point yet. If this is the way the draft unfolds and the next best running back is until round 3, I'm not even legitimately thinking about running back. Again, a lot can change on the real draft. This is just based on our draft. So I would go, and this is where it gets between Brian Thomas or Adonai Mitchell. I think they have very similar profiles. I think BTJ has the better production.
I believe it's Adonai.
Yeah. And Adonai Mitchell has way less production, but almost a mirror splitting image prospect athleticism score. And so it just becomes a matter of, do I want to take a wide receiver in a Patrick Mahomes offense or a wide receiver in a Buffalo Bills offense? Because in this draft, BTJ went to the Bills and Adonai Mitchell went to the Chiefs. And I'm taking Brian Thomas for the sheer fact that he went a little earlier in the draft. That meant the Bills had a chance to draft AD Mitchell and they didn't. So I'm going to trust the Bills organization over me, the dumbass from Mass. And I'm going to say, I'm going to trust that the Bills know what they're doing. I'm going to take Brian Thomas Jr. and I'm not going to look back. I think he's he's a good receiver, had a great year. That's my pick.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough in the 1 QB because you just don't know if they actually need a QB. I would say here, based off of landing spots of everyone else, I would go Caleb Williams right here. And so I just think that, and I'm taking the whole thing in taking the big picture of saying They also got Roma Dunze. He has a really loaded wide receiver room. His tight end is solid in Cole Kmet. Like, I think that there's, and again, I just said in all the last, whatever, 15 QBs taken or 12, whatever it is, number one overall, there's been like one or two duds. And then one in Bryson that we just have to see more. So given all that, I think you take him here. I'll comment more on the next pick of who you take, of who I would have taken if I didn't need QB here for the next skill position.
No, I'm so glad you said this because as I already kind of did in my previous pick, I was deciding between BTJ and Adonai Mitchell, which kind of just lends itself to you guys to know that I would have taken BTJ and AD Mitchell back to back, 105, 106. But I think 107 would have been the area where I said, now is the time where you say, there's no other player on this board, no first round picks left in the real draft that deserve to go ahead of Caleb. And I would have taken Caleb at 107. So now that you took Caleb from me, made my pick really easy. I'm taking AD Mitchell here. He got an awesome landing spot in Kansas City. I mean, Kelsey could be there. Kelsey could be there another year. He might start to falter. Rashee Rice has not been a downfield threat so far. I think he's well capable of it. He played the outside receiver role in college. It's weird that he didn't play it last year. He was a slot receiver, but AD Mitchell is a freak athlete. He had a terrible production profile, but my God, this landing spot's so good. He's the sixth wide receiver taken in, or the fifth wide receiver taken in the NFL draft and our draft. The only last remaining first round receiver. I think this is also the pick where you could have started thinking about running back, but I just think there's too many wide receivers with such good capital that just don't. First round wide receivers just miss so much less often than third round running backs do, where I just could not possibly see myself taking a Blake Corum, a Trey Benson, a Jonathan Brooks, a Jalen Wright ahead of AD Mitchell here. But I think you have a tough choice.
Yeah, the only reason I would have started considering running back is if actually Jonathan Brooks was with the Chargers and not with the Panthers. And so, because I think I like Jonathan Brooks as my favorite running back, but I don't like him with the Panthers. So
I like him a lot too.
Because even in the same breath here, like I'm probably not, because the landing spots for other players, I'm actually probably not even considering Jonathan Brooks until late round one. I don't even know if I would pick him in this first round draft we're gonna do.
I agree. If this
probably
is the really
second, if he actually is with the Panthers, there's a point where it's like, all right, the talent has to outweigh it, but yeah. So okay. This to me is a huge toss up. Based on
maybe like a salad.
Yeah. So I'm not. I would say just quick evaluation, right? Like Ladd, Keon are probably wide receiver ones. The rest of that second round, so that would be Xavier Worthy, Ricky Pearsall.
Troy Franklin could be the wide receiver one in Jacksonville too. I didn't even cover him earlier. I really like Troy Franklin a lot. I should have mentioned him. He ended up going 48 to the Jaguars in the second round. So now they have Franklin, Zay Jones, and Christian Kirk. So he has just as much opportunity as anyone. I should have mentioned him earlier. Damn, that's a great landing spot. I really like Franklin's prospect profile. But again,
right. But
you're on the clock.
Is he one? Is he two? Like it's kind of the same thing. Like for some of the other guys that I just mentioned. But I think like
over Worthy, who's definitely not going ahead of Chris Olave in that pecking order.
Right.
I see what
Roman Wilson's probably not going ahead of George Pickens.
No,
different roles. Ladd McConkey's probably going ahead of Adam Thielen. And
right. Well, they have Deontay Johnson now, so it's a weird.
Sure, I still probably would. I guess maybe, but I still would probably think Ladd McConkey's going to be coming in pretty hot.
Right. I think this is a tough spot. This is a tough pick in the 1 QB draft. Is the 108. Is like this is where it becomes value versus need, because now you're equating. Do I even trust my value anymore, or do I trust my needs more?
Well, I think for me, this is where the interesting conversation comes out: is how much do I like someone versus how much are they in a tier I'm okay getting whomever. Because this is now an interesting place where it's like, hey, could I trade this out for the 109 and the 201 and maybe get two of them based on how people are drafting? Because you start to get questions in here like, if I need a QB and I'm not wide receiver in need, I might go QB here. but I'm assuming most drafts in one QB leagues are going to be a ton of wide receivers off the board here. And so it's kind of that crapshoot of what you actually want to go through. Sorry, I still need that. I'm going to go. I'm going to go with Keon Coleman.
Okay, I like that. I don't think it's a bad pick at all. Where is Keon Coleman? Is he even on this board? Actually, where the fuck is there he is.
So
All right.
I'm going with him because just why I picked him. If he's going to the Chargers, I think that they need a wide receiver one. I think of him and Ladd McConkey, who I said are kind of best chance to be wide receiver one. I like Herbert over Bryce Young, so I was going with that mix. I was nervous about Harbaugh for sure. Nervous about being a running offense. So like, there's pause, but I think if you just take it materialistically at who the QB is and the potential there, even if they're a running team, they're still going to throw 20 times. That if 10 of those go to Keon Coleman, he's elite. So,
yeah, no, I think you definitely covered it all. So now I think, looking at this is the first 8 picks. There's 6 wide receivers gone. Brock Bowers and Caleb Williams. If this actually is the way our 1 QB rookie draft goes, I'll eat my shorts because I've never seen it. We've never had a draft go without a running back in the top 8, and I don't think it's going to happen that way. But I think I've let the well dry up long enough. I really love Ladd McConkey as a prospect. I love Troy Franklin as a prospect. Fuck. To me, it's between Troy Franklin and one of the running backs. And then this is actually probably the most difficult RB1 conversation we'll ever. As much as I said this is all chalk, I think I like Jalen Wright less than I like Benson, Corum, and Brooks. But I like Jalen Wright's landing spot with the Cowboys the most of the other 3. I think, like you said, Brooks to the Panthers is like, what the fuck?
yep.
Trey Benson to the Giants, what the fuck? Blake Corum to the Chargers is good, but like, I like him the least of the 4 running backs, of those 4 running backs. So I'm like, do I really want to take him now? So I think, honestly, unless I need running back in this situation, I'm going with what I have is my wide receiver 5. And I'm taking Troy Franklin here. I think he's got a great opportunity in Jacksonville. I love him as a prospect. I wanted to take running back there, but I don't think anyone emerged based on this draft. Nobody emerged as the clear favorite running back to take there. I think Benson and Brooks are my 2 favorites, but I think I really like Jalen Wright and I really like Blake Corum. But I love Wright's landing spot, but he was the 4th running back taken. That's such a weird conundrum for my brain to. Maybe he would be the one I take next. I don't know. I don't know much about Jalen Wright. He came out of nowhere this year.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with your points. I think the big piece is just really, and this is where we probably maybe messed up. We probably should have had it been our draft. I mean, or just like remixed our draft of having our team so we know roughly what they kind of need.
That's
because
true. I didn't want to make it seem like we're putting ideas in.
No, I agreed. But I think it's kind of that weird thing here where like, if I need a running back and I am the 110 and my next pick is a 210 and it's in a league where it's hard to get these picks traded and I only have my 4 picks.
That's true.
So I only have 3 of my picks. If I need that running back, I might just say, okay, or say I have the 110 at the 310 because I traded the 210 or whatever it is, the 109 to 309, and you trade your 209. I'm kind of in that weird camp where it's like, oh, if I need a running back, to your point, Joe, like I'm going to just go grab one of the ones I like. And then I'll get whatever else comes back to me at the end of the 3rd because I don't know what's going to be left unless I'm okay with Estime or Allen, who probably will still be there or potentially still be there in the 3rd. So it's just kind of like that weird.
It is weird.
Yeah.
Because like I'm thinking about it, like honestly, from my team's lens, I probably wouldn't take wide receiver there, but I'm doing it from a generic. If I'm at the 109 and I'm not me, even though I have the 109, the best player available to me, plus situation, plus based on the other teams, I think Franklin's a tier ahead of all those running backs. And I think Ladd McConkey might be too, because he also has an opportunity. But I like your point. I think you're right. I think this is where the running back conversation comes up. Even as soon as your pick at 108 was when I think the earliest a running back should have been taken was maybe 108. I think we need the first 6, 7.
But I think that the interesting piece though is exactly that: is how widespread are people's picks? Because if you also only say you have 3 picks, but they're all in the first round, we could have running back go at 5 because you've already
Right.
gotten 2 wide
That's
receivers and
true.
like fuck
Yeah.
it. So I think that's a key piece. Is
And
like,
you should technically trade down. Like technically, you should say, okay, if all three of
100%.
my picks are wide receiver prospects, I should take my 107 and trade it down for, like you said, the 202 and a future first.
And that's a big gap, I think, of knowledge, but also just how people are valuing things is like when they should be coming off versus like, hey, this is my pick. I'm not going to be able to probably grab this person again when they come back around, like Brent did last with Tajay. Weird pick.
Exactly.
We all like, holy shit, what's going on? But he's like, nah, this guy's elite. He's like, I want to draft him at maybe the 204, 205. Like, I don't know that pick. I have this pick, and there's no one else I love right now, so I'm going to grab him.
That's
so I'm gonna just to mix it up. I'm gonna go that spin. I'm gonna go Jonathan Brooks because I think that he's gonna be off the board somewhere in this range, if not earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect our actual rookie draft will have.
I'm gonna bet Jonathan Brooks is top 5 in our rookie draft.
You think so?
Yeah.
If this is the way the draft unfolded.
That's okay. Yeah, I guess maybe let's talk next show about that. And
because I'm going based on this draft. Like, right, I think
based off this draft, no, I'm not, because if he's at the parent, if that was a Chargers, I bet you he's top 5.
Oh, I think if any of these, if Brooks, Corum, Benson, or Wright go in the second round to any of the tier 1 running back landing spots, they're in contention with Brian Thomas. Agreed. I think this draft is a good example of, like, if this is the way the actual NFL draft unfolded and you actually take Jonathan Brooks ahead of a guy like Brian Thomas, I'm sorry, you're brain dead. Like, it's just such a bad process pick. Of course it could work out. Fucking Isaiah Pacheco worked out and he was like not drafted. But it's such a bad waste of when you could trade down and go get Jonathan Brooks later. Like you said, it's a disconnect of, like, do I think I can make that trade? Do I want to even engage in those conversations? I know how to
which that might evolve this year where we have this slow draft. You have plenty of time to have those conversations and debates. Like, so anyways.
Yeah.
Let's finish this up.
You made some good points. I think if I'm at the 111, I see the running back come off the board. I'm getting nervous now too that the running back run has started. I don't want to miss out. And I love Ladd McConkey. He's a first guy in, last guy out. He's a bring your lunch pail to work guy, real high energy, great locker room guy. But I'm looking at the board. I think Blake Corum and Trey Benson have great landing spots. Same with Jalen Wright. So now we're going to who's my favorite back that landed in a tier 1 spot, which these 3 are all tier 1 spots in my opinion. And I'm going to go with Blake Corum. I think he is a complete back going to his alma mater coach, going to a opportunity of a lifetime on a solid offense that's clearly investing in the run game. I don't know how you buy. I love Trey Benson. I don't really love him. I like Trey Benson. But I think you can't take Blake Corum there.
That's fine. I'm in between. So again, you could mock it up however you want. Potentially Jaden Daniels.
You're the 112, so you're the champion. You're the returning champ.
Okay, that's true. So again, maybe you have the older QB. I don't know. Maybe you had Matt Stafford or someone. I don't know, or Baker Mayfield. I don't know, or maybe Joe Flacco, who won you the league. I don't know. So potentially you'd go with the QB there. I would say to your point, you probably already have those things figured out. In that stance, I mean, Ladd McConkey, I was surprised you didn't take him, but I understand why you did what you did. So I'm probably taking Ladd McConkey, but I'd say for like conversation piece, I think there's plenty of other opportunities there too, and the mixture of your team, right? Like we talked about, not maybe doubling down, or like, do you want to have both those people if you think someone's old and going to retire soon? So, but right now I think Ladd McConkey, to me, you're taking him there because you're expecting Bryce Young to have a bad offseason where he's like kicking himself all offseason as like, holy shit, CJ Stroud was elite and I sucked. And hopefully he gets a stud wide receiver coming in and he's like, all right, let's go do some things. And hopefully that's with Ladd.
Yeah, no, I think Ladd's an awesome prospect. And I think he's got the opportunity there. So let's recap our first round. We went Marvin Harrison 1, Malik Neighbors 2, Rome Odunze 3, Brock Bowers 4, Brian Thomas Jr. 5, Caleb Williams at the 6, Adonai Mitchell was at the 7, Keon Coleman was at the 8, Troy Franklin was at 9, Jonathan Brooks was at 10, Blake Corum was the 111, and Lad McConkey rounds out our top 12. Now I think we've gone through quite a few players who we wanted to take. I think we have time for like one more pick each. I'm dying to make one more pick each. Because I think I had honestly, once Caleb was gone, I basically dismissed the idea of another quarterback. But I think it's a real discussion here where, you're lacking at QB, not even lacking. If you don't have a difference maker at QB, you should be considering QB here. And to me, this is Trey Benson versus, now that you took the last elite wide receiver, I don't think Xavier Worthy is, I guess,
wrong.
also.
I'm going Xavier Worthy all day.
I think Xavier Worthy is also pretty good.
Jane Daniels, yeah.
Well, my pick is either Jaden Daniels or Trey Benson, and I think, or Jalen Wright. I just think there's the running back. The hard part with running back is like these are all shitty draft capital. Third round draft capital is not that great, but it's hard for me to. I'm going to go Trey Benson. I really wanted to take Jaden Daniels, but I think Trey Benson was such a good back coming off multiple injuries in Oregon. He got a good landing spot in New York where you assume he's going to at least split time with Devin Singletary at worst. But at best, he emerges as a 60-70% market share back. Early third round, third running back taken in IRL, third running back taken in our draft. I think it's a good draft pick here.
That's fine. Then I'll just say I'll take Jaden Daniels because I already have Malik Neighbors, and although I do think Xavier Worthy should go there too. And I think you're probably picking the better asset in Xavier Worthy than Jaden Daniels, but that's just my 2 cents. But I think again, the first round QBs are a real crapshoot. I'd rather try to grab them in the third. And again, when's JJ McCarthy or Michael Penix going to go, who are first round draft picks? Probably in the third. So if I come back around, whatever one's left for me in the third, I'll take my risk there, and I have a better sure shot with the wide receiver here, I think. So, anyways.
No, and you're right. Now that I'm seeing what players are still available, I almost regret trading up from the 112 to the 109 because like Xavier Worthy a month ago to me was a top 6 pick. Yep. And now I'm getting him here at 203 where I'm like, holy fuck, what an amazing pick. At 203, Xavier Worthy of the Saints, I don't care if he's behind Chris Olave. Every wide receiver left on the board is behind someone at this point. So to get what I perceive is one of a top 8 tier of wide receivers here.
Yeah, and I was thinking about taking him at like the hide this real quick at like the 13. And it said Jonathan Brooks. I was going to take Xavier Worthy there, but again, if you don't take him there, now you got Troy Benson. Like all those first. Now we've seen 15 picks are all great, and there's still 3 to 6 more picks to take that are like, they're all pretty good. So.
I still like Jalen Wright to the Cowboys. What a landing spot. Braylon Allen to the Raiders. Like there's still a few good players left. I wish we could go through a whole draft. I think there's a lot going to change in 2 days, so we don't have to go dwell on this. I'm looking forward to next week's episode, which might be a recap of the draft. And I don't know what we're going to do yet, but Dave, I had a lot of fun going through this, getting rookie fever. I'm getting a little sweaty.
Getting jazzed up. No, this is a great show, and thank you guys all for tuning in. And we'll make sure we have some draft recap coming out here shortly. And excited to talk to y'all next week after we get through the NFL draft. Hopefully, you guys all enjoy it.
Cheers, buddy. My last sip.
Cheers, buddy.
Peace out, homies.
See you guys.